We've had a stimulating, entertaining, educational, informative, fascinating journey. And this is the last leg of our journey on this trip of the mind and heart and spirit of Swami Vivekananda. And the presider of our panel, this panel 5, is on Vivekananda from the perspectives of different Sampradayas, lineages, paramparas. And so we have with us presiding Veena Rani Howard. Veena, I should really do this from heart because she's very close to my heart, but I'll do it properly and politely out of respect for her as a colleague too. Veena Rani Howard's expertise lies in Hindu thought, comparative religion, and Gandhi's philosophy of ascetic activism. She teaches at the University of Oregon. She has translated 2 books of the Sant tradition, including Moksha Darshana and Sarvadharma Samanvaya, and her articles have been published in various essay collections and journals. Her book is just out this year. It's a fabulous book. If you haven't had a chance to get a copy, please do. It's called Gandhi's Ascetic Activism, Renunciation, and Social Action. Veena, take it away.
So this is welcome to the last panel of this wonderful conference. I hope you're enjoying the conference as much as I am. Lot of food for thought, lot of food for heart, and lot of food for soul, all kinds of. And you can notice now our stage is becoming more and more orange. So this is a good sign that we are reaching the height of the conference mission, and we are close to now Swami Vivekananda ji. So I was counting, since yesterday we've been sitting for almost 16 hours and listening to presentations from seasoned scholars and learned sannyasins about the life and legacy of Swami Vivekananda. We also heard about the content and context of Swamiji's teachings. When I was listening to these lectures, I was in awe, or I am in awe even still. How did Swami Vivekananda did it in such a short lifespan? I mean, think about 39 years of age. And we are all, are really grappling with his issues and his teachings. So this panel is broadening the scope of Swamiji's teachings. Our first speaker, I would like to introduce, and I call her, she's my favorite nun, because usually you go to a nun and you bow down, and they bow down back to you, and she gives a big hug and a kiss. There are not very many nuns are like that. And her laughter is contagious, and she is a beautiful person. And I think she makes me believe that renunciation is fun. So Pravrajika Vrajaprana is a monastic scholar on Vedanta and the history and growth of the Vedanta societies. She is a sannyasini at Vedanta Society of California, Sarda Convent, Santa Barbara. Her works on Vedanta include Vedanta, A Simple Introduction, 1999, Living Wisdom, 1994, and she is the co-author with Swami Tyagananda of Interpreting Ramakrishna, Kali's Child Revisited. She put a lot of work in it, and if you haven't a chance to look at it, please do that. Please welcome Pravrajika Vrajaprana.
This has really been a wonderful conference, and the amount of love and work that went into it are really obvious, so I'd particularly like to thank Rita Di and the Dharma Civilization Foundation. This is really, it's been a wonderful experience. I'm talking about Swami Vivekananda and women, and there's many reasons to admire Swami Vivekananda that we've heard about today, but one reason is specific to my gender. Unlike nearly every other male of his era, Swami Vivekananda wanted women to be free in every possible way. At a time when monks were supposed to eschew all thoughts regarding women, Vivekananda upended monastic and social protocol by insisting upon the necessity of women's education, freedom, and independence. At a time when Western women were supposed to be cosseted and tended to, he asked that they take risks and act fearlessly. At a time when Indian social reformers were preoccupied with child marriage and widow remarriage, as if marriage were the apex of any woman's life, Vivekananda charted out another path that was as bold as it was far-reaching. Let it be forever remembered that it was Vivekananda who broke through the sandalwood ceiling, and I have to thank Rita for that phrase, which I will use the rest of my life, and broke through the sandalwood ceiling, which had been in place for thousands of years, by insisting that women were qualified for sannyasa and for brahmajnana, every much so they were as qualified as men. Now, what's extremely important here is that not only did Vivekananda insist that they were qualified, he actually put his beliefs into practice. He would not let the matter die when everybody else wanted the matter to die. In fact, without Vivekananda's consistent prodding, there would be no women's monastic organization today, and I would not be standing up here wearing this color. Vivekananda put into motion the creation of a women's monastic order that is today India's most prominent women's monastic organization, and equally groundbreaking, he gave both brahmacharya and sannyasa vows to Western women. Vivekananda had a lifelong admiration for and faith in women. Throughout his lifetime, he gave credit to his mother for whatever gifts he possessed, and from all accounts, she was a remarkable woman, a force to be reckoned with, a woman from whom he inherited his prominent eyes and his formidable memory. He respected women in every area of life, and he always gave credit where credit was due. He said, "Whatever I know of religion, I learned from my master, and he learned it of a woman." That's referring to the Bhairavi Brahmani. It never occurred to Vivekananda that women were lesser beings or incapable of doing what they needed to do. He said to an American audience, "Women in statesmanship, managing territories, governing countries, even making war, have proved themselves equal to men, if not superior." Now, women weren't used to hearing that, let alone men. From the earliest days of his public life, Vivekananda made it a point to subvert the idea that women were by nature dependent and weak. In 1895, in Thousand Island Park, Vivekananda was giving Vedanta classes to a group of select students, and he decided to go for a walk, and some of his students tagged along. Well, two of his students who tagged along were American women, one of them, Christine Greenstedel, who was from Detroit, nice young woman, and she was unaccustomed to walking in steep terrain, let alone hiking. So it was, Thousand Island Park is heavily forested. It's very difficult terrain, and it still is. So the going was a bit rough, and she naturally expected a helping hand from the Swami, and especially since his talks made clear the reverence that he had for women. Now, when he didn't help her and her fellow student, Mary Funky, she was exasperated. So she later wrote, "We were allowed to climb up and slide down rocks without an expected arm to help us. When he sensed our feeling, as he so often did, he answered our unspoken thought. He said, 'If you were old or weak or helpless, I should help you. But you are quite able to jump across this brook or climb this path without help. You are as able as I am. Why should I help you? Because you're a woman? That is chivalry. And don't you see that chivalry is only sex? Don't you see what's behind all these attentions from men to women?' Christine said that with these words came a new ideal of what true reverence for womanhood means. Vivekananda, she said, had unbounded faith in the power and the greatness inherent in all women. She said that he believed that that every woman was a part of the Divine Mother, the embodiment of Shakti he learned well from his guru. Vivekananda knew that women needed to access their own innate strength and power so that they could attain the freedom that was their birthright. Christine said about Vivekananda that From men, he demanded manliness, and Sharda spoke so beautifully about that. He demanded manliness, and from women, the corresponding quality for which there is no word. Whatever it is the opposite of self-pity and the enemy of weakness and indulgence. The attitude, she said, had the effect of a tonic. Something long dormant was aroused, and with it came strength and freedom. Freedom was above all else what Vivekananda wanted for humanity, and when he found it missing, he would do anything in his power to right the situation. Freedom, he said, is the first condition of growth. What you do not make free will never grow. It was for this reason that Vivekananda actively sought women's freedom, socially, educationally, and above all, spiritually. Soon after he arrived in America in 1893, Vivekananda said, "The idea of perfect womanhood is perfect independence." Now, this is a glorious quote, but I think we really need to unpack it and contextualize it. He began this short talk by saying that the best thermometer of a nation is its treatment of women. Well, that's well and good. Okay, plus, good point. And then he continues by saying, in ancient Greece, there was absolutely no difference in the state of a man and a woman. Wrong. Wrong. It's historically incorrect, but it's a nice idea. We give him points for that. Okay. He goes on to say, however, that, quote, the central idea of the life of a modern Hindu lady is her chastity. Whoa. Okay. Apart from the fact that this sounds scarily medieval, the statement also sounds like a complete contradiction of a woman's freedom and independence. So how do we square this? Well, we need to begin by asking, what are we to be independent from? Not only from the ropes that society throws around our ankles, but from the ropes that we throw around our own souls. We have to free ourselves from our own limited identification as being female or male, and specifically in this context, a female whose identification is narrowed into a limited body-mind complex that has value only to the extent that it can be sexually attractive and reproductively useful. Vivekananda's idea of perfect independence was freedom from the mistaken idea that we could ever be caged into limited bodies and minds with these small gender identities that only get in the way of our real identification, which is the divine Atman within us. Vivekananda said that the soul has no sex. It is neither male or female. It is only in the body that sex exists. And one who wants to reach the spirit cannot at the same time hold sex distinctions. Perfect independence, then, is living in the knowledge that we are divine beings, unlimited, pure, and perfect, beings who use our bodies wisely and nobly. It isn't that women shouldn't be wives and mothers. Vivekananda always said that being a mother and a wife was a grand and a noble life, but it has to be done in the right spirit. Women, above all, should never forget their real nature, which is that of Shakti, the divine mother herself. And for that reason, while Vivekananda always wanted women's social and intellectual freedom, the ideal of a woman's spiritual freedom was for him paramount. Vivekananda was a student of history, and he learned from it. He knew very well that Christian nuns were second-class citizens in their own church, and he knew that a Buddhist nun of 30 years standing would have to bow before some 14-year-old kid who'd been in the monastery a month. He also knew the history of Hindu oppression against women, and it made him bloody mad. He said, "You always criticize the women, but what have you done for their uplift? Writing down smritis, etc., and binding them by hard rules, the men have turned women into manufacturing machines." Nice turn of phrase, don't you think? Vivekananda was genuinely outraged by women's lack of standing in the Hindu tradition of his era. He told his disciple Sart Chandra Chakravarti, "In what scriptures do you find statements that women are not competent for knowledge and devotion? In the period of degeneration, when the priests made other castes incompetent for the study of the Vedas, they deprived the women also of all their rights. Otherwise, you will find in the Vedic or Upanishadic age, Maitreyi, Gargi, and other women have taken places of rishis through their skill in discussing about Brahman. Since such ideal women were entitled to spiritual knowledge, why shall not the women have the same privilege now? Now, it's really remarkable that in 1894, long before Bela Mott came into existence, Vivekananda wrote from America to Swami Shivananda, a brother monk and a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Vivekananda wrote in this long letter, "As to money, I have determined first to build some place for mother," that is Sri Sarda Devi, Ramakrishna's wife. "For women require it first. If the place is secured, then I don't care about anything else. I hope to be able to get 1,600 rupees a year from this country," that's America, "even when I am gone. That sum will make over to the support of the women's place, and then it will grow." He says to Swami Shivananda, remember, he's a disciple of Ramakrishna, "You have not yet understood the wonderful significance of mother's life, none of you. But gradually you will know. Mother has been born to revive that wonderful Shakti in India, and making her the nucleus once more, Gargis and Maitreyis will be born into the world. Hence, it is her mot, i.e. a women's convent, that I want first. We must first build a mot for mother, first mother and mother's daughters, then father and father's sons. Can you understand this? In this terrible winter, I am lecturing from place to place and fighting against all odds so that funds may be collected for mother's mot." 1894. Now let me remind you of how extraordinary this is. This is a Hindu monk writing to another Hindu monk about setting up what would be the first organized women's convent mutt in India, which later became Sri Sarda Mutt. The Ramakrishna mission would not come into existence for another 2 years. The land upon which Balar Mutt would eventually take shape would not be even purchased for another 3 years. Vivekananda clearly had his priorities, and you gotta wonder what his brother monks were thinking about that when he got this letter. In 1896, Vivekananda wrote to his brother disciples at Alambazar Mutt, which was the precursor of Balar Mutt. In this letter, he goes into great detail about how the future Ramakrishna order was to be set up. In this long letter, he says, "If you consider it wise to be guided by my ideas, then I shall supply all necessary funds. Moreover, please show this letter to Gauri Ma and Yogin Ma and others." Now, both Gauri Ma and Yogin Ma were disciples of Ramakrishna. Gauri Ma had actually been given the Garawa cloth by Ramakrishna, and Ramakrishna told her to begin work among educating the women of India. So he said, show this letter to Gauri Ma and Yogin Ma, and through them establish a women's mott. "But none of you," he writes to his brother disciples, "shall be allowed to visit the place. They will manage their own affairs. They will not have to work at your dictation. I shall supply all necessary expenses for that work also." This is another singular quality of Vivekananda, because unlike the other reformers of his time, Vivekananda insisted that the women make their own decisions about their own lives. Christine Greenstedel remembered that Vivekananda insisted that only the women could decide how to do their own work. She said, on this point he was stern. He said, "Am I a woman that I should solve the problems of women? Hands off. They can solve their own problems." Vivekananda's work for women was not limited to India. In 1896, Alasinga Perumal, one of Vivekananda's closest disciples and an orthodox Tamil Vaishnava Brahmin, received a letter from Vivekananda which said, quote, "One of my new sannyasins is indeed a woman," a bit of news which must have left Alasinga stunned. The tone of the letter implies that there must have been some dismayed questioning about this report, which had appeared in the New York Herald. Vivekananda's letter continues, she, Marie Louise, who then became Swami Abhayananda, was a leader of the laborers, end quote, as if the addition of this information would somehow make the earlier phrase more palatable. If Vivekananda said that he was starting a Vedanta center on the moon, the report would have been less staggering. Now, if this news was shocking in India, it was equally shocking in America. In the 1890s, a Hindu woman, Swami, was acceptable neither in India nor in America. So why did he bother? Because he so believed in women's spiritual freedom that he was willing to overturn any apple cart necessary to attain that goal. Vivekananda encouraged women to be teachers of Vedanta, whether they were monastics or not. In 1896, he wrote a letter to his disciple Ellen Waldo, encouraging her to lecture at the newly created Vedanta Society in New York. A young Hindu had been suggested for that work, and Vivekananda didn't want to do it. He wrote her, "Why do you not begin to teach?" And he continued in this letter, which he underlines, "I will be 1,000 times more pleased to see one of you start than any number of Hindus securing success in America, even one of my brethren." He's talking about direct disciples of Ramakrishna. Vivekananda encouraged her by saying, "Make a blaze, make a blaze." He so wanted her to begin teaching, and his other disciples. She didn't take the bait, but that didn't stop him from trying to get other women to step up to the spiritual plate. It is significant that Vivekananda gave sannyasa, and this time without a formal ceremony, both to Sarah Bull, Mrs. Oli Bull, and to Sister Nivedita. And the report of this event is absolutely extraordinary. It happened in 1899 in Ridgely in upstate New York. Nivedita wrote of this to Josephine McLeod. She writes, "On Sunday afternoon, Swami Vivekananda insisted on my coming, and he took out 2 pieces of Garawa cloth. He called me to my room where Sarah Bull sat writing. First he shut the door, and then he arranged the cloth as a skirt and chadar around her waist. Then he called her a sannyasini, and putting one hand on her head and one on mine, he said, 'I give you all that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa gave to me. What came to us from a woman, that is Kali, I give to you 2 women. Do what you can with it. I cannot trust myself,' he wrote." Imagine. He continued, she says, "Women's hands," he told her, "will do the best anyway to hold what came from a woman, from mother. Who and what she is, I do not know. I have never seen her. But Ramakrishna saw her and touched her like this," she said, "touching my sleeve. Anyway, I cast the load on you. I am going away to be at peace. It is like a release. I have borne it all this time, and now I have given it up." Now he's speaking, in this extraordinary interchange, he's speaking about the power that Ramakrishna put to him, and he wants to give to these 2 women. We can remember that Vivekananda said, 2 or 3 days before Sri Ramakrishna's passing away, she, whom he used to call Kali, entered this body. It is she who takes me here and there and makes me work. I feel that that power is constantly directing me. Now, so this was in 1899, and Vivekananda may have given the power up to these women, but the power wasn't about to give him up at this point, because it was only 1899. And in fact, Vivekananda was only just warming up. By 1901, he was back in India. He had only 1 year left to live, and he wasn't about to waste time. He told his disciple Chandra Chakravarti about his plans for starting a women's mott, an idea he was not about to drop. He said, "On the other side of the Ganga, a big plot of land will be acquired, where unmarried girls or brahmachari widows will live. Men will have no concern with this mott. There should be a girls' school attached to this women's mott, in which religious scripture, literature, Sanskrit, grammar, and even some amount of English should be taught. Other matters such as sewing, culinary art, domestic work, upbringing of children will also be taught, while japa, worship, meditation, etc., will form an indispensable part of the teaching. If they are deemed fit for yoga and religious life, they will be allowed to stay at this mott, taking the vow of celibacy. These celibate nuns will, in time, be the teachers and preachers of the mott. In villages and towns, they will open centers and strive for the spread of female education. Through such devout preachers of character, there will be the real spread of female education in the country." Now, Chandra Chakravarti knew trouble when he saw it. Now, his response to his guru was typical of his time. His first concern was Those girls will not command reputation in society. Nobody would like to marry them. Ooh. Vivekananda's response was that learned and accomplished girls will never be in want of bridegrooms. Now, the more telling response was from Chakravarti was, there is sure to be a violent opposition against this in the beginning, to which Vivekananda gave a typical reply, let it be. What is there to be afraid in that? Opposition to a righteous work initiated with moral courage will only awaken the moral power of the initiators the more. To which 100 years later we now reply, right on, brother. Thank you very much. It's been a long time coming. The power which Ramakrishna gave Vivekananda finally did give him up in 1902. But until then, he continued to work for freedom, for women, for men, for all beings who hadn't yet accessed their own greatness, their own strength, and their enormous potential as unlimited spiritual beings. As a nun in the Vedanta Society, I never take for granted what I have been given, courtesy of Swami Vivekananda. As a woman, I'm even more grateful, and as a human being, my profound debt to him can never be expressed or repaid. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. We are all indebted to him. It's really gave me goosebumps when listening to your talk. Thank you so much. He was so much ahead of his time, wasn't he? Now, our next speaker is Pandit Gadadhara, Pandit Dasa. I met him yesterday, and I'm very excited that he'll be speaking here this afternoon. Gadadhara Pandit Dasa, also known as Pandit, I will call him Pandit Ji, is a monk, lecturer, and the first ever Hindu chaplain for Columbia University and New York University. He speaks at nation's leading universities, yoga studios, and retreat centers, inspiring audiences with India's spiritual wisdom. His unique approach combines teachings of the ancient classics, Bhagavad Gita, with contemporary culture, such as literature and films, including movies such as The Matrix. That'll be fun to hear that. Panditji spoke at a recent TEDx conference at Columbia University and was featured in the NPR piece, Long Days and Short Nights of a Hindu Monk. And his new book is out, or his autobiography is called Urban Monk. I think that is worth reading. The topic of his talk is today, the cultivation of the seed of Bhakti, perspectives from Swami Vivekananda and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Please welcome Pandit.
Om Jnana Timidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshudunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Thank you very much, Rita Ji, for inviting me, not just to speak, but also to be enriched. Feel really honored and humbled to be in this esteemed assembly of amazing scholars. It's been really a wonderful experience hearing everybody speak. So, as I talk about this topic on cultivation of the seed of bhakti, I thought it would be good to start with a definition of bhakti from the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. And there'll be a few layers to this level of, to this definition of bhakti. First, the definition of bhakti is, most of us know what bhakti basically translates as devotion or love or devotion. How about Swami Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, expands on this definition of bhakti. He explains that while bhakti can mean love, but to make bhakti complete, we have to add the word service next to love. So then it means devotional service. So because if you have devotion for anyone or anything, then you have to be willing to serve. And service naturally means sacrifice. So if you have devotion to God, then you're naturally willing to serve God. And service means you have to sacrifice your time and energy. And which goes for anyone. If you express devotion or love for anybody in your life, and if they need you and you're not willing to serve, then it can't really be devotion. It can't really be bhakti. Now, Rupa Goswami, who many of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas consider the father, one of the fathers of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism or the Hare Krishna movement, gives a very specific definition of bhakti. He says that bhakti has several components to it. First of all, one of the first components of bhakti is that it should be devoid of any other desire, especially desires of karma and jnana. And what does that mean? So it says that in acts of bhakti to God, that one should not have any desire for something in return from God when they engage in bhakti, because that's fruitive. That one should worship God simply for the pleasure of worshiping God, simply to please God, and should not expect something in return. I think especially, in Hinduism, we're very famous for asking for so many different things. You know, right from the very beginning, you're asking for a husband or a wife or kids, and kids to go to college, kids to get a good job, grandkids, just, next life we're praying for. We're asking for something or another. And even in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that there's different types of people that come to me, those who are in distress, those who are looking for money, those who are inquisitive, those who are the wise. And he says, I appreciate all of them, but the one who come to me without asking for anything are the most dear to me. But what Rupa Goswami, the contemporary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is explaining is that pure devotional service, not just bhakti, but pure devotional service, is that in which you're praying and you're engaging in service to Krishna, to God, without asking for anything in return, anything material, any material benefit. And it's also saying that the other component that we should be praying for is the idea that we want to merge our existence into God. And this is where I believe Gaudiya Vaishnavism differs from many of the other Hindu traditions, is that Rupa Goswami is saying that we shouldn't actually ask to merge ourselves, the soul, into God, that we should remain an individual so we can continue serving as individual beings. And Rupa Goswami goes further to explain that bhakti should be done specifically with the intention to please Krishna. The intention has to be there. And in that intention, we shouldn't consider whether or not the acts of bhakti will be convenient for us or whether they'll cause us any inconvenience. That shouldn't be a consideration. If it pleases God, we do it. And there's a beautiful story that's told in relation to this. Perhaps some of you are familiar with this story. It's a story where Lord Krishna is speaking to Narad Muni. And he tells Narad Muni, Narada, I have a headache. And the only thing that's going to relieve this headache is if I can get the dust from the feet of my devotees, and I'd like to put that dust on my head. So Narada, please give me the dust from your feet. And Narada immediately says, I can't do that. That's not something I can do. You're my Lord. I can't put the dust of my feet on your head. So Krishna says that please go out and find some devotees who will give me the dust. So after Narad Muni goes to so many devotees and everybody refuses, he finally goes to the Braj Gopis, the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan. And he explains to them, Krishna has a headache, and he's looking for some dust from the feet of his devotees. And that dust is the only thing that's going to cure his headache. Would you be willing to give some dust? And without thinking or questioning, they immediately start taking off whatever dust they can from their feet and collecting it. And Narad Muni is confused, says, don't you know that if you do this, you'll go to hell? They said, well, that's okay. At least Krishna's headache will go away. So that is pure devotional service. No consideration of what discomfort or what the ultimate outcome would be for me, but as long as it pleases Krishna. And so pure devotional service has to be done with the intention of pleasing Krishna. I haven't seen this, but I've heard that sometimes in India, you have these tela walas, these guys selling fruits and flowers, and on the carts. And sometimes maybe like a monkey will come and steal away with some bananas, and then the fruit seller will think, okay, well, that's given to Krishna. That one's given to God, because that one's gone. No, it has to be done with the intention. You take your bananas into the temple and offer them to God. Don't wait for the monkey or the something to blow them away and then say, well, that I'm giving to God. No, it has to be done specifically with the intention to please God and without any expectation. And bhakti, so after explaining these three different categories of bhakti, devotional service, the claim that's being made by Swami Vivekananda is that bhakti is exclusively meant for God. And I'd like to read a quote from him here. So this is in the complete works of Vivekananda. The sage Shandilya is quoted, "Bhakti is intense love to God." End quote. The best definition is, however, that given by the king of bhaktas, Prahlad. So quote, "That deathless love which the ignorant have for the fleeting objects of the senses, as I keep meditating on thee, may not that love slip away from my heart. Love, for whom? For the Supreme Lord Ishvara. Love for any other being, however great, cannot be bhakti." So there's a certain exclusivity maintained here for the word bhakti. It means it cannot be given to any material thing of this world. You cannot have bhakti for your iPhone, as much as you'd like to think you do, with getting all the beautiful cases and covers. No, you can't have bhakti for your car. You can have appreciation for the facility it's providing, for your house, even the family in your material world. It doesn't mean that there isn't love, there isn't affection, there isn't reciprocation. But the word bhakti is exclusively reserved for between the soul and God. Why? Because everything in this material world is temporary, as we all know. It has a beginning and it has an end. And whatever amount of bhakti or love, let's just say, we demonstrate towards some material object, we know that over time it fades. You don't love it the way you used to the first day you had it. Even relationship between individuals, over time, relationships can deteriorate, familiarity starts to breed contempt, and ultimately death puts an end to that whatever affection, or maybe not completely the affection, but that relationship has now ceased to exist. But because Supreme Lord is eternal, and the Atma, the soul, is eternal, that is the only true place where bhakti can exist. Now, in talking about cultivation of the seed of bhakti, we'd like to use the metaphor of a plant to talk about how bhakti actually is cultivated. And we're also going to talk about the 9 stages that an individual goes through in their cultivation of bhakti. In this regard, I found a really nice quote from the Bible, actually, in which Jesus makes a similar comparison. So while speaking in parables, Jesus uses the metaphor of a plant referring to the kingdom of heaven. Quote, "The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all your seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and perch in its branches." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, while instructing Rupa Goswami, talks about the different levels or different stages the seed of bhakti goes through. And I'd like to read something from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. "In the beginning, there must be faith. Then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees. Thereafter, one is initiated by the spiritual master and executes the regulative principles under his orders. Thus, one is freed from all unwanted habits and becomes firmly fixed in devotional service. Thereafter, one develops taste and attachment. This is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles. Gradually, emotions intensify, and finally there is an awakening of love. This is the gradual development of love of Godhead for the devotee interested in Krishna consciousness. So he explains that it all starts, faith or bhakti actually starts as a seed that is always there within us. It's just that it's dormant right now. Ultimately, that seed is meant to produce a fruit, and that fruit is love of God. And this is one of the reasons that bhakti is exclusively reserved for God and love of the soul for God. Because as the body ceases to exist, whatever level of bhakti the soul has developed, whatever level of awakening the soul has developed through its spiritual practice, that level of awakeness will be present as the soul leaves this body and moves to the next body. Whereas everything else we acquire in this life with this body will be lost. Our money, our houses, our family, everything will be lost, except to whatever degree the soul is awakened in this life. That exact same amount of awakeness will be there in the next life for the soul to be able to continue growing until the plant produces that fruit. So there is no loss or diminution in this path. So it starts as faith. That's bhakti in a seed form. And that faith allows us to move forward. And in one sense, in everything in life that we do, a lot of faith is needed. It's not just needed for us to grow spiritually or to love God, but in everything. If somebody had told us before lunch that you could get food poisoning from the food, I don't think anybody would go there because our faith would be crushed. Because nobody said that, we had faith that it's a reputable establishment. Things in here must, will just nourish us and not kill us or put us in the hospital. We place faith in almost everything we do. If students were told before joining a university that you can join this university, pay tons of money, you'll actually not get a job after you graduate, and you might have to flip burgers at McDonald's, I'm pretty sure the admission rate would be a lot lower. So or in any relationship, you place faith that this relationship will be, the foundation of it will be loyalty to one another, and that it has some potential to last. If you doubted the loyalty of an individual at the very beginning, at the onset of a relationship, there would be no relationship. So we are creatures of faith. We are actually made up of faith. Without faith, we really can't do much. And so also, in order to achieve the fruit of bhakti, we need to start off with faith. And once that faith is there, then the second stage, so that's the first stage. Second stage is an individual starts to associate with other individuals of faith. And what does that do? That increases an individual's faith and determination that the process works. When you get around people, like-minded people, that naturally increases faith and conviction. When you come to the university, you see people graduating, you're like, okay, it can be done. It does happen. Okay, some people get jobs afterwards. Okay, they're getting successful. Okay, the process works. I want to be part of this institution. I want to go through the system because I want to have what they have. And so in spiritual circles, naturally, an individual looking to cultivate bhakti will participate with other individuals who are also looking to cultivate their bhakti and gain inspiration from more advanced practitioners. And in that association, Rupa Goswami explains that one will, or one should, such association should lead to the finding and establishment and establishing of a relationship with a guru or spiritual teacher. Of course, the question can be raised, how do you know who is the right teacher? And there's a couple of nice quotes from Swami Vivekananda that help us understand that. The sun requires no torch to make it visible. We need not light a candle in order to see it. The teacher who deals too much in words and allows the mind to be carried away by the force of the words loses the spirit. It is the knowledge of the spirit of the scriptures alone that characterizes the true religious teacher. The network of the words of the scriptures is like a huge forest in which the human mind often loses itself and finds no way out. Swami Vivekananda gives another trait by which a genuine teacher can be recognized. The teacher must not teach with any ulterior, selfish motive for money, name, or fame. His work must be simply out of love, out of pure love for mankind at large. The only medium through which spiritual force can be transmitted is love. And in the Bhagavad Gita, it explains an individual or a student's interaction, the nature of a student's interaction towards the guru. In chapter 4, verse 34, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So there's three components to this verse for a student to know is to approach, inquire submissively, and render service. So these three components form a bond between the disciple and the teacher. And this happens as one engages with others who are like-minded. And the third thing and fourth things that start to happen, third and fourth stages, is now one engages, now one's in a community of other bhaktas or devotees, and with the teacher, they're engaging in service. And as they're engaging in service to the community, to each other, to the institution, what starts happening is a process called anartha nivritti. It's a very, very important stage, which means that the unwanted things from within the heart start to manifest. And these are anarthas that need to be removed before we can actually progress to the next stages. So Sri Chaitanya, in his instructions to Rupa Goswami, explains the following. Some unnecessary creepers growing with the bhakti creeper are the creepers of behavior unacceptable for those trying to attain perfection. Diplomatic behavior, animal killing, mundane profiteering, mundane adoration, and mundane importance. All these are unwanted creepers. So, because in bhakti, it can also happen that one's motivation for practicing spiritual life can change over time. One may get caught up in the idea that they want recognition, they want praise, they want to just be appreciated by others, to be recognized by the world and society. And that as that seed of bhakti is growing, these other creepers are growing along with it. And an expert gardener, a spiritual gardener, has to be careful to pull those weeds out, otherwise they will choke that creeper of devotional service. And that can only be done under the guidance of a teacher. And if that's not done, then one puts one's bhakti at risk. And as these anarthas are being uprooted, we also have to be very cautious of the anartha of envy. Even within a spiritual community, there can be tremendous amounts of envy that creeps up between one another. Seeing another progress more than us creates envy towards our brother and sister. And there's a really nice quote here from Swami Vivekananda in reference to this. Any man may do a good deed or make a good gift on the spur of the moment or under pressure of some superstition or priestcraft. But the real lover of mankind is he who is jealous of none. The so-called great men of the world are seen to become jealous of each other for a small name, for a little fame, and for a few bits of gold. So gradually, as one is able to overcome these anarthas, the next stages, 5, 6, and 7, we're going to, of course, bring them really close together now. It's called Nishta, Ruchi, and Asakti. Nishta is firm faith, where one is no longer doubting whether there is a soul, whether there is God. They're fixed in their faith. They may not be intellectually capable enough to defeating others who oppose their philosophy, but it doesn't disturb their faith. That's Nishta. As we go above Nishta, well, while Nishta stays, Ruchi develops, or taste. And this Ruchi is a point where spiritual practice is no longer an endeavor for the mind. Right now we have to convince ourselves to meditate or to pray or to do service. It actually, you have a taste for it. You do it naturally. When Ruchi develops to another level, it becomes asakti, or called addiction. It's very much like what it sounds, addiction. You're like an addict, a bhakti addict. Right now, while we're doing our devotional practices, we think about work, family, this obligation, that obligation. It's just the other way around. While you're doing your other stuff, you're thinking about bhakti. You're thinking about God. You constantly, the mind just races back, and you have to try to bring your mind back to your present day activity. And the two higher levels, the final two stages, are called prema, bhava and prema. And I will just read this because I think my time is up here. I will read the two final verses of the Shikshastakam, which are the 8 verses compiled by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the progress for a devotee. And the final 2 verses talk about bhava, ecstasy, and prema. This is him in the mood of a devotee. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy names? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the repetition of your names? Feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is my worshipful Lord, birth after birth, unconditionally. So the mood is at a very high level where the devotee, just like the gopis, whether Krishna is present before them or whether he breaks their heart by not being present before them. He is their Lord, birth after birth. So these are the 9 stages of devotional service, of progress that one can use to monitor their own spiritual progress. And how as the plant is growing, that we have to be very, very careful in monitoring the growth of that plant so that it doesn't become choked by all the other mundane things of this world, the tendencies that we have in our hearts that may come up. So this is what I wanted to share. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Panditji. We can get stuck in our heads, so it's nice to be reminded again about love and bhakti. Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Vasant Joshi ji. His accomplishments are many, so I'm just going to highlight a few of them. Dr. Joshi has been in the academic field for over 30 years in India and in the United States. He has served on the faculty of University of California, Berkeley, and at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. He was academic dean, professor, and chairman of comparative studies at the California Institute of Integral Studies, San Francisco. While in America, Dr. Joshi came across the works of Osho, then known as Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, and was initiated into sannyas by Osho, taking the name Swami Satyavedant. He was later appointed as a Chancellor of Osho International Meditation University by the renowned mystic. His recent publications include Osho, The Luminous Rebel, Life Story of a Maverick Mystic, and If It Could Happen to Buddha, Why Not You? His earlier Osho's biography has been translated into German, Chinese, and Japanese. So please welcome Dr. Joshi.
I would like to first express my reverence and deep gratitude to my spiritual master, the enlightened mystic Osho. Also, my profound regards and reverence to Swami Vivekananda. It is indeed a happy coincidence that I had the honor of speaking at the 100th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda at Belur Math in Kolkata, representing the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda while I was working on my doctorate degree. And I'm again here honored to be speaking this afternoon, for which I'm immensely grateful to Dr. Rita Sharma and to the Dharma Civilization Foundation. I do not, however, belong to any or represent any sampradaya, any cult, any sect, or even any religion. I am here to share a vision. Enormous ignorance exists about life, reality, and many dimensions related to the phenomenon of energy, spirituality, and consciousness. Ordinarily, one thinks about ignorance as absence of knowledge, but as the enlightened mystic Osho points out, the true meaning is, and I quote, ignoring yourself, ignoring that which can become your knowing, which can become your wisdom. And the whole day, the whole life, you are continuously ignoring yourself. You are taking care of everything, every trivia, but never taking any notice of the most precious thing that you have, yourself. Ignoring yourself is the only ignorance, end quote. The sages have always reminded that the word ignorance simply means we have been ignoring the essential. The person who is too much concerned with the mundane, objective world is essentially ignoring oneself. Hence, the Upanishads defined science as ignoring as avidya. It is a concern more with the outer, while life, living as such, is an opportunity to discover the inner, the essential, and not wasting it in the non-essential. Osho explains further that, and I quote, we have simply to accept the mystery that we are born in ignorance and the possibilities intrinsic in us to dispel this ignorance and become aware. We are born in misery, but with an intense potential to overcome it, to transcend it, to become blissful, to become ecstatic. We are born in death, but with the possibility of going beyond death into immortality, end quote. Swami Vivekananda also makes this point very clear when he asks, why were people suffering? Ignorance was his answer. Vivekananda realized that the solution to all problems was in understanding our true nature. I quote him, he says, we are not the body or the mind. We are the eternal self, the Atman. Not knowing our reality, we hold on to false things and go on suffering in life, end quote. Vivekananda therefore called upon humanity to give up negative notions and know the truth about ourselves. He reminds us, and I quote again, this life is precious. We are wasting this precious life in ordinary, meaningless things and enjoyments. Let us seek something meaningful. Let us go forward to know greater things. Let us once and for all give up the idea that we are sinners, useless people, and so on. Let us know that we are the Atman, end quote. Going deeper in the issue of our ignorance, Swami Vivekananda gives a clarion call as to how we may overcome it and gain internal power. He says, and I quote, What we need is strength. Be free from the bonds of nature. Be free from weakness. You are the self, and that must be realized. Now, the spirit is seeking itself as the body. That must stop. The moment you begin to realize that, you are released. End quote. Recognizing the fact how we have become mentally weak and how we have lost the ability to comprehend the reality, Swami Vivekananda points out, and I quote, all originality is lost. The mind has lost all its strength, its activity, and its power of thought, and just tries to go round and round the smallest curve it can find. This state of things has first to be thrown overboard, and then we must stand up, be active and strong, and then we shall recognize our heritage of that infinite treasure, the treasure of our forefathers have left for us. End quote. Swami Vivekananda also makes it clear that we are responsible for the state we are in, and it is for us to get out of the state of these affairs. He says, and I quote, this misery that I am suffering is of my own doing, and that very thing proves that it will have to be undone by me alone. That which I created, I can demolish. That which is created by someone else, I shall never be able to destroy. Therefore, stand up, be bold and strong, take the whole responsibility on your own shoulders, and know that you are the creator of your own destiny. All the strength and succor you want is within ourselves. End quote. Osho's views equally emphasize this very critical point when he says, and I quote, one who does not know the truth of the self is poor, he is a beggar, and one who is unfamiliar with his inner being is ignorant. Remember, fine clothes do not mean prosperity, and knowledge is not gained by cloaking oneself with great thoughts. One thing just conceals your poverty, and the other simply hides your ignorance. For those with deeper insight, lordly garments are a manifestation of poverty, and grandiose thoughts are a sign of ignorance. Consider this for yourself. Are you not depriving yourself of truth? Is anything worth attaining at the cost of yourself? At the expense of your soul? End quote. Osho leads us to recognize this reality and follow a path, a process, a methodology to overcome the ignorance and weakness on the one hand and gain true power within oneself on the other. And he identifies this path, this process, this methodology as meditation. Osho illustrates the fact that the power of the atomic bomb is not some power derived from outside. It is the power of the atom, which was dormant, passive, which was activated, awakened. If this is possible through the atom, Osho says, which is part of electricity, just a small particle, imagine the possibility if such a part were to explode in the very being of a man. End quote. A small particle of this consciousness, if it explodes, would bring so much light and so much power. Perhaps the mystics who have always been talking about power were talking about the power that they were feeling inside themselves. It has nothing to do with dominating anybody. Their power has been used as compassion. Their power has been used for showering flowers over others. Their power has not ever been used for any destructive purposes in the service of death. Osho makes the point even more clear when he says the power that comes out of meditation does not come as power. I may also point out here that in his lifetime, Osho designed hundreds of meditation techniques. Somebody told me close to 3,000 meditation techniques. And he has made that as the cornerstone of his work. So that is why he says that this power that comes from meditation is totally different. It comes as if flowers are showering on you. It comes as fragrance. It comes as love. It comes as compassion. It brings all the great qualities and all the great values of life suddenly to their blossoming. It is the spring of your consciousness because you are bursting forth into flowers which cannot be seen by the eye, but those who have the heart and the courage to open to it, it will certainly feel it. they will feel its song, they will feel its dance. Swami Vivekananda brings the same point home when he was asked, "How can I become powerful?" In his answer, Swami Vivekananda made it clear, and I quote him, "Do not spend your energy in talking, but meditate in silence. Silence tells more sometimes than all the speech in the world, and do not let the thought of the rush of the outside world disturb you. The power is within the silent ones, who only live and love and then withdraw their personality. They never say me or mine." End quote. It is clearly apparent that both Osho and Swami Vivekananda and their respective visions, insights, and intense work created a worldwide awakening, a universal message inspiring millions to find the very meaning of life and living, to move beyond divisions of all kinds with hope and courage, and to seek enduring peace inwardly as well as outwardly. What both faced in their respective milieu, in all likelihood, was much bigger, much deeper, and more critical a challenge than humanity has faced before. Both Osho and Swami Vivekananda encouraged one and all to question the status quo and then move ahead, culminating it into a quest. Quest brings one to a point where all is resolved, and consequently one comes to experience nothing but silence, samadhi. However, ready-made answers cannot help bring the state. Aldous Huxley, it is reported to have said, and I quote him, "There comes a time when one asks even of Shakespeare, even of Beethoven, is this all?" It is this question we find raised by Osho and Swami Vivekananda, which shows their way of approaching the world reality. They are saying, even if the best this world can offer, and man can achieve, is this all? Indeed, the historical and socio-cultural differences were far apart when both worked incessantly, traveling in India and the world around. While Swami Vivekananda worked in India under the dominant British rule, Osho worked in free India. Moreover, Osho has a distinct advantage of being able to make the best possible use of technology, especially the electronic, audio, and video means of communication. His discourses given in India and around the world are available in close to 10,000 hours of audio and close to 2,000 hours of video discourses, which have been published into 650 books. But regardless of the conditions and means available to them, both use every ounce of their energy for removing the centuries-old ignorance and for empowering the souls. There are certain themes that are common in the works of both these visionaries. They may be pointed out very briefly as follows. Both show equal respect for all religions, and yet both advocate a trans-religious approach so as to overcome the barriers created under the orthodox representation by the established religions. Both Osho and Swami Vivekananda strongly discourage confining oneself to holy scripture, dogma, or creed. They show a special care for the world around and encourage reverence for all life. They display deep love for India and awakening the masses in the spirit of love and compassion. The words, ideas, thoughts expressed by both Osho and Swami Vivekananda show their brilliant skill of communication, specially used for reminding and spreading the eternal values of life, freedom, individual and collective emancipation. But essentially, and over and above all this, both appear to be great healers. While Swami Vivekananda healed through his words and deeds the wounds caused by political slavery and socio-cultural bondages, Osho included these dimensions and went beyond this to heal basically the wounds created by one living in slavery of the mind and the hearts which have been completely disjointed. As healing processes, both highlighted the vision of Advaita and that of the Sakshin, the witnessing consciousness. And I'll briefly dwell with these 2 points before I conclude. Sages and now scientists acknowledge that at a deeper level of reality, this universe is intrinsically and infinitely interconnected. Everything interpenetrates all that is. Hence, in nature, energetically, everything is connected like a seamless web. But the human mind divides and further keeps on dividing this reality into myriad categories and lives in pigeonholes. Those who have realized the phenomenon of consciousness say that indeed if everything is connected, then we are all one, Advaita, which literally means not two. Just one whole devoid of any I and you anymore. So Osho and Swami Vivekananda emphasize the fact that if one comes to realize we are a part of this all-pervasive central energy consciousness, then we are not separate. If one is willing to make this as part of one's own experience, then there is no room for separation, division, competition, or alienation. And hence, Advaita is essentially a healing process, making one whole, healthy, holy. Osho explains, and I quote him, "The outer and the inner are not two, and the creation and the creator are not two, and matter and mind are not two, that the sacred and the profane are not two. They are one. All duality has disappeared for them." This is what I call Advait, non-duality, the real message of Vedanta, the real message of yoga, end quote. In one of his letters, Swami Vivekananda explains, and I quote him, "I quite agree with you that only the Advaita philosophy can save mankind, whether in East or West, from, quote, devil worship, unquote, and kindred superstitions, giving tone and strength to the very nature of man," end quote. The Vedantic vision of Sakshi, the witness or the witnessing consciousness, carries a dual meaning. It is the way one finds a healing process working within the individual, leading to a healthier state of being and living, and in its wider implication as a witness or Sakshi, this very healthy being and living empowers one to save energy, power, by transcending the dichotomy, the duality, Dvaita, and experiencing the one, the universal consciousness. We try to settle the problem of duality through the same set of dual opposites, the state of schizophrenic and confronting the constant flow of yes and no, good and bad, right and wrong. This obviously leads to losing one's energy, strength, and power. Osho draws our attention to the third dimension, the way of witnessing, that of watching or a non-judgmental observation. And I quote him, "This is what meditation is all about, just becoming a watcher. Failure comes, success comes, you are praised, you are condemned, you are respected, you are insulted, all kinds of things come. They are all dualities, and you go on watching the duality. A third force arises in you, a third dimension arises in you. The duality means two dimensions. One dimension is happiness, another is unhappiness. Watching both, a depth arises in you. The third dimension, witnessing, Sakshi," end quote. Now, this state is poetically described in the Mundaka Upanishad, and I quote that. It says, and I quote, "Two birds that are ever united and known by the same name closely hold on to the same tree. One of them eats the fruit of divergent tastes, while the other looks on in silence," end quote. Here, the two birds stand respectively for the individual self, soul, or jiva, and the universal self for soul consciousness. The individual self is conditioned by the body and the mind on account of its association, identification with the sense objects due to ignorance, avidya, or as Osho says, because of unawareness. The individual self, jiva, eats fruits of its action and goes through experiences because of its identification with them. The universal self, the pure consciousness, is just a watcher, being a witness to the acts, experiences of the first bird as a detached observer. Swami Vivekananda clarified this phenomenon of being a witness as follows, and I quote him, The easiest way to get hold of the mind is to sit quiet and let it drift where it will for a while. Hold fast to the idea, I am the witness watching my mind drifting. The mind is not I. Then see it. Think as if it were a thing entirely apart from yourself. Make no effort to control the thoughts, but watch them and follow them in imagination as they flow away. Hold to the idea, I am not the mind. I see that I am thinking, I am watching my mind act. And each day, the identification of yourself with thought and feeling will grow less until at last you can entirely separate yourself from the mind and actually know it to be apart from yourself, end quote. Osho explains that by its very intrinsic nature, this witnessing consciousness can immediately stop our mechanical, habitual, conditioned behavior. In that moment, one is free to be at a distance, though fully aware, fully open to experiencing. Clarifying it further, Osho says, the purpose of observation, of watching, is twofold. One, to open, see, lay bare the content of the mind. And secondly, to empty the content. 5 minutes? Okay. The emptying of the mind is possible only when the content is not only observed, but brought to a focus of awareness. In such a process, one merely observes, intruding in thoughts, feelings, and emotions, the whole gamut of the inner state without repressing it or indulging into it, simply quieting the mind through observation. As Osho points out, it is more like a lake of consciousness, silent, with no ripples, only an experience of oneness, Advaita. In that experience of watching, one begins to understand the conflicting dualistic state of mind in awareness in Advaita. And out of this awareness, one reaches the moment of silence, and the silence is meditation, where the person, the I, the meditator, is absent because the mind is empty of content. Then there is bliss, peace, Advaita. Such is the all-inclusive, non-dualistic experience that one may come across it in the very middle of daily life, routine, or activity. It shows an all-encompassing, not a selective or divided attention. Without interrupting or disconnecting oneself from the activity, the observation can continue. All is accepted and watched in a state of Advaitic awareness. I will bring to a conclusion that this vision and insight of Osho and Swami Vivekananda can work as pointers, although both have differences in their approaches to reality. This is the last point, madam, then I will finish. Okay? While for Osho, empowerment is a direct outcome of awareness and meditation, Swami Vivekananda finds empowerment through physical, political, economic, and social gains. One may ask, is one supposed to be altruistic and serve others, do good to others? Swami Vivekananda gave special emphasis to this aspect with his immense concern for the poor, exploited, and the downtrodden. Osho stressed the fact that concern for the other and service to humanity needs to arise spontaneously. It can manifest naturally when the mind is not obscured by the trivial and the lower is transformed into the higher rather than merely through taking a vow for serving the other. While Swami Vivekananda created a mission as part of addressing poverty and serving the weak, Osho's approach is to bring more effort and create wealth so that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is erased. Swami Vivekananda believes, and I quote him, spirituality can never be attained until materiality is gone, end quote. Osho finds no need to create dichotomy between spirituality and materiality. He stresses the fact that both body and soul, matter and spirit, are a part of one reality. Two sides of the same coin, he says. He calls himself a materialist spiritualist. He recommends we need to be as materialist as the Greek character Zorba is and as spiritualist as Gautam the Buddha is. Hence, Osho does not encourage creating a mission-like organization as part of his work. He says we need more awareness attack in the society. so that all that is harmful, detrimental, dehumanizing can be eradicated from its roots, and through a greater awareness, with a better understanding, we may give birth to what he calls the new man, the new woman. Osho says, I am not a missionary, I am a mission. If you come close to me, you will be transformed. I will conclude by just my last point, and that is that both have shown how to unburden oneself from all bondages and all weight that we carry within us. But in one of his discourses, Osho mentions this, and I will share this with you. He says, in his last moments, Vivekananda said he had been calling for 100 people to come forward to work with him, but that they had not come, and that he was dying a very unhappy and disappointed man. Vivekananda was convinced that he could have changed the world if those 100 men had come forward, but they never came, and Vivekananda died. I have decided, says Osho, I have decided not to call, but to go to the villages and search out those 100 men. I will look deep into their eyes to fathom the depths of their souls. If I am able to bring together 100 such men, I assure you that the souls of those 100 men will stand out like Mount Everest, casting their brilliance on an erring mankind and leading it to the right path. And finally, addressing a group of seekers, Osho says, and I'll conclude this, of late, I have been constantly praying with the hope that collective explosion in the lives of millions of people may be possible, and you can be of great help in this endeavor. Such explosion in your own life will have immense value, not only for you, but for all mankind. With this hope and prayer that you will not only light your own lamps, but that your light will help other extinguished lamps to be lighted, I bid you farewell. And I bid you farewell too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joshi ji, for such an enlightening talk. I wish we had more time to hear each one of our presenters. So please give all of them a big hand. Thank you.
I want to give you some logistics information. First of all, a tremendous amount of thanks go to all of you for being here, for attending, for presenting to our scholars who've come from as far away as Canada, UK, India, and all over the United States. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your reflections, and your brilliance with us. Thank you. I also want to thank my students for putting up with us academics for 2 full days. That alone should give you an A. So, thank you. The Dharma Civilization Foundation is the sponsor of this event, and a lot of the work that's been going on in terms of at USC in terms of Hindu studies as well as UCI, and so many people have asked, what is Dharma Civilization Foundation? You know, I have the executive vice president is here, and I'm going to let him come and say a few words in a minute. And before that, before concluding, I want to just say a huge note of thanks to the USC School of Religion, particularly chaired Duncan Williams, for his remarkable support of this endeavor. Kalyan Vishwanathan is the executive vice president of Dharma Civilization Foundation. I'd like him to say a few words, and while he's traveling up here, those of you who are going to the academic retreat tomorrow, you should, if you're presenters, you should be going to the Biltmore. If you're going to BAPS, then you will go to the Biltmore after the BAPS visit. You'll come back to the Radisson, pick up your luggage, and then be taken to the Biltmore. If you're not going to BAPS, you should pick up your luggage, take a cab, go directly to the Biltmore, keep your receipt. We'll take care of that from you tomorrow. And anyone who's coming to the academic retreat who is not part of the Biltmore group, It is in the USC Caruso Catholic Center. And if you're not sure of where that is, come and talk to me in the next 2 minutes. Thank you.
A few words about Dharma Civilization Foundation. So the Hindu community in North America in particular has had a sort of on-again, off-again relationship with the academia in the academic world in North America. And there have been many efforts to create chairs, positions, endowed chairs and visiting professorships and so on. DCF is one such effort, but at least with the group of the Board of Trustees, we hope it's not a sporadic one-off effort. It is something that is sustainable and something that can make a long-lasting impact in terms of building relationships with universities, in terms of interacting with the academia, in terms of founding chairs and departments, schools and colleges and so on. So we are beginning with a very large vision for what we think is possible. And the steps we've taken so far are very preliminary. So the founding of the Swami Vivekananda visiting professorship at University of Southern California, Professor Rita Sharma being appointed to that visiting professorship, this conference, all of which are outcomes of some of the early efforts of Dharma Civilization Foundation. Just a couple more notes on that. We do have intentions to elevate our level of engagement, not only with University of Southern California, in terms of a full endowed chair here and even potentially an India center, but also with other universities. We are currently engaged with University of California in Irvine, right? UCI. We are engaged with Claremont Lincoln University, which is in California, in Los Angeles. Also with the Graduate Theological Union, we're getting started with them and associated with UC Berkeley, and hopefully many others in the future. I'm very happy to also share with you that we have started engaging meaningfully with some of the important gurus and acharyas of our time. I personally took the vision and mission of this foundation to Swami Dayananda Saraswati of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, who is a very important Advaita scholar today, and Swami. And he has blessed the initiative of setting up a Swami Dayananda Saraswati chair for Hindu studies in North America. And one of the risks of going to a Swamiji with a proposal like this is he made me responsible for raising the money for this for this chair, which I have gladly accepted. I'm also happy to say we've met Sri Ravi Shankar and had many meaningful interactions with him and some of the key leaders from his community. There's a lot of interest, a lot of momentum. We've engaged with Mata Amritanandamayi, Amachi as she's called. She's also very interested. I personally went and met with Swami Tejomayananda of Chinmaya Mission to give him a proposal for setting up a chair in Swami Chinmayananda's name, given that the 100th birth anniversary of Swami Chinmayananda is going to be celebrated. So, Dharma Civilization Foundation has started a conversation, and I would like to think of it as the word dialogue has been used extensively today. So it's a conversation with universities, with academicians, with the gurus, Swamijis, acharyas of our time. And we hope that this conversation will not only sustain itself, but also grow and expand in the course of time. So with that, I'll stop and say thank you very, very much for participating, everybody. Thank you.